Okay, so for this next part, we're going to take a look specifically at being able to apply CSS to update the color of, say, maybe some text inside of our application. So we're going to look at a couple of different ways that we can do that, and we've kind of seen a little bit of this already. If we take a look at this CSS file, we can see instances, say, like where I change the color of text to red for all of the labels, text fields, and buttons, or I'm changing it to blue specifically for one of those labels, or even in this case when I'm changing the border color for the border that I put around labels to be black. So in addition to this way that I've been doing it, where I just specify the name of a particular color, we can also take a look at two other approaches. So we're going to go through a little bit more about using names and then also address these other two ways that we could add color to our style. So for this one, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just make another Java program. Go ahead and save this. I'm going to call this one my color demo. And for this one, I again mostly just need the style from the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, place that here, go ahead and change the name, and start from here. So for this one, I'm primarily just going to worry about modifying the color of text for a single label. I'm just show each one of these different approaches using just this much. For the style, I'm going to go ahead and make a separate style sheet. So if you're doing this through some kind of NetBeans project, rather than just bringing over this style.css, you can just go ahead and make a new style sheet for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and create that as well. I'm going to call this color style.css. And I'm also going to go ahead and change the name of the resource that I'm getting. So that'll be color style.css. Okay. Alright, so then inside of here, go ahead and make our label. So my selector is going to be to go grab all the labels in my application and modify them in some way. Next thing I'll go ahead and do is get that property. So we're going to have fx text fill, so we can go ahead and modify the color. And then the next thing I want to go ahead and do is start trying a couple of approaches. So to start off with, we'll go back through what I've already done before, which is with named colors. So I can do something kind of like, say, red, for example. So when I do this, essentially I'm just saying, okay, go ahead and just make all the text, the color of it, red. So we've already seen this before, so there's nothing particularly interesting about me compiling and running this program as it is. So instead of doing that, I would just immediately kind of jump into the next approach. So in addition to being able to just specify a named color and to just make the color of text that color that I named, I can also specify particular numeric values for it. And the way that I do that is by specifying a ratio of red, green, and blue. So kind of a mixture of those three primary colors to then generate some color of my own. So I'll do RGB, and then we'll have a pair of parentheses. And in this pair of parentheses, we'll go ahead and put in a number for each one of these values. So the way this is going to work is that I can have something like, say, 0, 0, 0. So we'll start off with just none of any one of these three colors. So if I go ahead and save this, we go ahead and compile this and run it. So our color demo.java. I'll run it. And then we can see this is some text, and we'll see that it's in black right now, since if we do 0, 0, 0, meaning we have 0 for our red, 0 for our green, and 0 for our blue, that mixture results in the color black. So then, if I go ahead and close this, I can then go ahead and modify one of these values, and so the maximum value that I can use for each one of these is going to be 255, so that'd be 255 here, meaning that for any one of these three values, for red, green, or blue, there are essentially 256 different shades for that particular color. So anything from 0 all the way up to 255 for each one of them. So do all red, just do 255 for that, and then leave the green and the blue as both 0. Since I'm only modifying the CSS file, I can just immediately run my Java program, and we'll see now that it's in red. And then if I modify another one of these, we can close that. Say I want to apply it to my green as well now. So now it's going to be all red and all green. Go ahead and save that, run it. And now it's a little bit harder to see now, but you might be able to faintly make out that it's the text is now in yellow. So we can see for each one of these, as I modify them, and change some portion of it. So I'll just go ahead and show this last one. I'm not going to run it like this, since doing it as all 255 is you're going to make it solid white and it wouldn't be visible anymore. But essentially, if we make all three of these 255, blending the colors together like this just gives us white. Okay, so this is one approach that we can take. In addition to this, this is doing it with decimal values from 0 to 255. Another approach we could take is to actually do them in hexadecimal. So if we want to do it with hexadecimal, say like a base 16 instead of a base 10, we can do a pound symbol or a hashtag, and then we specify two numbers. So this is going to represent the amount of red. Another two numbers that represents the amount of blue, or the amount of green, and then the last two numbers, and that represents the amount of blue. So this is going to be our RGB in hexadecimal. So if I do a pound symbol and all zeros, and I run this, then this is going to be the equivalent of doing RGB with 000. That's just going to do it in black. So this is some text. Go ahead and close that. And then coming back over here, we can go ahead and modify one of these. So the maximum value, if we do it in hexadecimal, for 255, its hexadecimal equivalent would be FF. So let's go ahead and do it like that. One thing to note is that I have a bit of a habit of putting the letters. So when you're doing in hexadecimal, once you get up to 10 through 15, it's the letters A, B, C, D, E, and F. For those particular ones, I usually capitalize them. That way then the line height for the entire value stays consistent. Just a small sort of best practice to take advantage of there. So we'll do FF for the amount of red. This will be the equivalent of doing RGB with 255.00. So when I do this, it'll just be red. So we can run that and see that effect right there. For this particular one, I'll show it also with an FF on the end. So this is going to be all of the red, none of the green, and then all of the blue. So it's just a perfect mixture of red and blue. So we'll save that, run it, and see that we get it in a sort of purple color for this is some text. And again, just like the other one, if I make the middle two FF, I won't try to run it like this since it won't be visible. This will just make it a solid white color. Okay. And then the last thing to make note of about the named colors. So right now I've kind of discussed just a couple of really simple ones, things like red, green, blue, black, or white. You got various names like these, but in addition to these, there's also many other different kinds of shades and more obscure colors that you could pick from. If I remember correctly, there's roughly 190 to about 200 different named colors to pick from. So quite a lot to choose from. To give you an example of some of the more obscure colors that are available, I'll pick one example. There's a color known as Plum. This one I want to say is more of a light kind of pink or peach color. Yeah, so it looks a little bit similar to the purple, but is a slightly lighter shade. So this is just an example of the variety to choose from when it comes to the named colors. Okay. All right, so that's going to wrap up everything that I wanted to say about these three different approaches to named colors. On the last video related to CSS, I'm going to briefly go through a little bit about inline style.